Namaskar, everybody. Welcome to the self-development talk for tonight. Today, we'll talk about the importance of resilience and emotional intelligence. We'll start off by a quick recap of our discussion from 2 weeks ago. We spoke about what emotional intelligence really is and what are some of its benefits, why is it important, and what is the role of compassion towards emotional intelligence. How does compassion help us be emotionally intelligent? After that, we'll talk about the other secret ingredient that helps with emotional intelligence. Now, it was part of the title for today's talk, right? That secret ingredient being resilience. So we'll talk about why resilience is important and how it helps us develop emotional intelligence. Lastly, we'll also discuss how we can be grounded like this beautiful tree. How can we have roots as beautiful and as well developed so that we can expand and grow just like this tree? Let's start with emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand our emotions, right? It's the ability to not only completely identify what emotion we're feeling, but also understanding what caused that feeling, what are its origins, and what are those feelings trying to tell us. Because contrary to popular belief, our emotions do help us, they do tell us something about a specific situation, about a specific person, just like our thoughts, right? We do rely on our thoughts, on our logic. Similarly, our gut feeling or our feelings, that different feelings that we have, they also tell us pretty important bits of information that our mind and our thoughts alone can't tell us. So yeah, the ability to connect our thoughts and our feelings is emotional intelligence. But everyday life is pretty demanding. Sometimes it gets intense, because of which, every now and then, all of us, stop being in touch with our feelings as much as we could have or as much as we should have. And on top of life being demanding, intense, we're also in our own ways, in some ways, culturally conditioned to only focus and trust some feelings, but not all of them. Like for example, again, popularly feelings like only a certain few feelings like excitement, joy, um, are celebrated. But certain other feelings, right? Maybe as we grow up, our elders, or when we go to school, or even when we, become adults and enter the workforce, enter adult living, certain feelings, they're not particularly celebrate. Like it's not popular to celebrate certain feelings, such as, I don't know, awkwardness, right? If now me, 30-year-old male, my friend would want to hear about me feeling excited, but he or she might not necessarily be interested in hearing about me feeling awkward about something, even though he or she might be able to actually help me feel lesser awkward, right? But something that we can do so that we're not emotionally dissonant, that is distant, but actually emotionally connected or intelligent, is we can use self-compassion. And compassion can form that highway that connects our thoughts with our feelings, right? And compassion or empathy for yourself, allows our brain and our heart to communicate and help us in harmony. Some other benefits of being compassionate, or rather, how does really compassion help us be emotionally intelligent, right? Compassion is a way of valuing our own emotions, our own feelings. Simple as that, right? And as we repeatedly do this more and more often, and also better and better, right? With practice, we get better at everything. So with practice, we're also going to get better at tuning into our own emotions, right? So as we do that more often, we allow ourselves to develop our own value systems. So an example, right? As I grew up, I had a teacher who was extremely polite. And being near that teacher, I felt really nice. I felt, I got a warm and fuzzy feeling. I liked when I was around her, not only when she spoke with me with politeness, but when she spoke with anybody else with politeness. I sensed how inspiring and empowering that made everybody else feel, along with her, right? So subconsciously, I learned the value of politeness, and that became a part of my value systems, right? Politeness is something I grew up to value, right? On the other hand, again, as I was much younger, and maybe even right now, I was pretty restless, and I'm sure to a certain degree I'm pretty restless even now, right? I always felt like my friends and my family, they always felt like I was pretty impatient. And sometimes I realized that too, that, oh wow, I am being so impatient about something, right? So, but as I grew up, I sort of confronted this emotion too, along with the gamut of other emotions I felt, right? So when I started to tune into this feeling of impatience, I felt that it was such an uneasy feeling, right? And after tuning into it many times, after being really good at tuning into my impatient self, I felt like, okay, it's trying to tell me something, which is basically I'm trying to change something that's outside of my control. And that is why I'm being impatient about it, right? But because it's something that I can't necessarily control, being impatient about it is not really helping me, right? So instead of trying to change something that's way out of my comfort, out of my control, why don't I change my approach towards it? And that's how patience became a part of my value system, even though I hadn't even learned how to be patient. But I knew my emotions clearly told me, hey, you got to be patient is something you're lacking. Just like you learned the importance of politeness and you learned politeness as you grew up, maybe somewhere along the way you didn't necessarily learn patience, but this emotion is a good signal for you that you need to learn it. That was my heart telling my brain that um, you're lacking a skill, and now you need to develop that skill, right? So as a result of validating and valuing your emotions over and over again, you develop your set of value systems, and this cycle over and over again results in you being emotionally intelligent. Great. And compassion again, right? Self compassion is not the only kind of compassion. There's compassion for everybody else, right? So you use this yellow highway of communication, compassion towards yourself, right? And then you share that with your friend, right? This other smiling face. And in your own ways, you showed them how you are listening to your feelings, you're valuing your own experiences, and you inspire somebody else to do the same thing, right? In their own ways. We all have our unique emotions, our unique experiences, but we can all definitely encourage, inspire each other to tune into our own unique feelings in our own unique ways, right? And that's really how you can help them develop self-compassion, develop emotional intelligence. And guess what? Research has proven when an individual is emotionally intelligent, they're better at productivity, creativity, at making decisions, especially during times of crises. A person who's emotionally intelligent, they're better able to respond to an emergency situation. And right, just imagine if more people than not were emotionally intelligent, it would lead to such healthy, beautiful groups, right? Your family is a group, your community is a group, your team at work, at play is a group. Imagine if most people in all of these groups had this beautiful highway of compassion that they used within themselves and around themselves, right? However, compassion is not an easy thing to do. Being compassionate has its own sets of challenges, right? First challenge, I think, is that compassion is a very gradual process. Now, expressing compassion towards myself or towards somebody I care has its own flow, right? Now, again, my impatient self, if I ever felt like I should get there faster, I'd pedal my bike faster and get there faster. But if I'm feeling something, right, and I'm trying to be compassionate towards myself, I can't hasten that process, right? Similarly, if somebody I care for, somebody who depends on me, right, they need my compassion, I can't tell them to, hurry up and take my compassion. No, I have to give them time to open up, right? To confront their own feelings, to understand their own feelings. And just me giving them more compassion isn't gonna, make this process go any faster, right? Talking about experiences, some experiences, they can be so significant, so huge in a heavy way, in a tragic way, that they can be really difficult to deal with as they're happening, right? Which is why you can't hasten the process of giving your compassion to somebody who's experiencing such a situation. And these situations, they can be really difficult to deal with, even in hindsight, even when they've occurred, even thinking back of such experiences, it can be difficult to deal with them, even just in thought, right? And because people, let's face it, in reality, people can face personal loss, people can face immense amounts of tragedy. And hey, the human spirit, it can endeavor all of this in its own time. But while it's going through this journey, it's really difficult, right? And many times, one may, or like I might have such a difficult experience that I might feel like I just don't lack any more compassion. I just don't have the energy to reach within me and understand what's going wrong, what's wrong with me, right? And the same can happen when I'm trying to be compassionate towards somebody else. Something that they, or something that them and I together went through was so difficult that it's just so hard for me to feel compassionate, or to give them as enough compassion as they need, right? And this is called compassion fatigue, right? So, talking about fatigue and stress, let's talk about this. I'm sure some of us might realize this is a stress ball, right? And it's my favorite kind of stress ball because it's yellow and it has a smiling face on it, right? And I haven't really used too many stress balls, but of course I've seen them. And some people claim, like research claims, that they're good for relieving stress, because when you feel stressed, like your muscles, they tense up. So this stress ball is a good way of letting out that tension, and that way you feel more relaxed when you squeeze them. Also, like if you have like these medical conditions where your muscles and nerves might have been damaged on your wrist, especially by like using computers and stuff, the stress ball helps you gain back the strength in your muscles, right? Again, I haven't used stress balls too much, but my favorite, the thing that I like most about stress balls, especially those that are yellow and smiling, is how much ever pressure I apply on them, they're never gonna stop smiling. They're always gonna keep smiling, and they're always gonna come back to their original shape, right? And this quality of stress balls, of coming back to their shape, is called resilience. It is the ability of any object to spring back into its original shape. And just like stress balls, you and I, people, can also be resilient. There is a personality characteristic called personal resilience. And the American Psychology Association defines resilience as the process of adapting well, to adversity, trauma, tragedy, or personal problems like relationship problems, health, financial problems, right? So if you might notice, there's a common theme here, right? Which is difficulty, tragedy, right? We all have our own types of difficulties, right? But the key takeaway here is the word adapting, right? So if we adapt the right way, it is possible for us to overcome these difficulties, right? And kind of be like this person, or be like the stress ball, right? Always smiling in face of difficulty, right? And always feeling strong, because that's what matters, is feeling strong. When you feel strong, that's when you can actually find the strength you need to tackle that situation, right? And again, like any other personal skill, with practice, it is very much possible to develop, to expand your little resilience that you might have somewhere in you, to like, a full-blown personal resilience that you can use, that can carry you through one or any of these personal difficulties, right? I'm sure everybody on this call today has had experienced at least one of these difficulties. And I wouldn't be surprised if, we have a handful of us that have faced all of these kinds of personal difficulties at some point in their lives, right? So these difficulties, they're not going to go away. These difficulties, they're a part of existence, right? And which is why a resilient person is wise enough to know that, hey, they're always going to face some sort of difficulty, right? Along this journey of life, as they're walking, in some way, they're always going to fall. Maybe it's because of their own mistake. Maybe it's because of somebody else's mistake. Whose mistake it is doesn't really matter. What matters is if they stand up back after they fall, right? And because a resilient person, they've accepted that, hey, yeah, we all make mistakes, and maybe none of us make mistakes, but still, we all might, find ourselves in a situation which is not exactly enjoyable, right? We feel like we're stuck. So how do I get out of this, right? How do I get myself back? Just like the stress ball, how do I retain my shape and my smile, right? So these resilient people, they're always proactively thinking about how they can avoid the next time they fall, right? They're not being negative about their life, but they're still trying to be realistic. They're trying to predict what might go wrong. Knowing me, what might I do, to maybe harm myself, or knowing whatever the situation I'm in. Let's say I'm driving, it's snowing, right? Haven't driven for so many years, I know that these few things might happen when I'm driving. So since I'm resilient, how can I look out for driving well, and how can I help myself not get stuck in snow, and how can I help somebody else if I see that they are stuck in snow, right? So again, because a resilient person is also compassionate, as we spoke, they not only help themselves, they also help others when they find themselves in difficulty. Okay, so how can we be resilient? How can we be like this beautiful person here with their strong, wide roots, right? Because you need such well-developed roots to stay grounded, so that whichever direction the wind blows, you're always standing there. You might bend a little bit so you don't break, but you're not gonna get blown away by the wind, right? And these beautiful roots, you might notice they're different colors, right? It's all different colors because of different kinds of experience and different kinds of value systems, which is why it's not just one color of wood, but many different colors, right? So how can we be resilient? Having a well-developed, well-defined moral compass, right? A sense of right and wrong is very important um, towards developing personal resilience. So a person who's able to come back, bring themselves back after a fall is usually somebody who has well-developed ideas of what's right and wrong. So that whenever, even if something goes wrong, they know what's right. So they're gonna get up and try to stick by what's right. Right? Also, a resilient person, this is a point I guess we've spoken many times in the past, is they have experience, right? But in reality, it's not possible to be experienced about everything, in which case a resilient person is okay with not having experience, because in that case, they know that's an opportunity for them to gain more valuable experience, right? If there's something I'm not experienced in, hey, that's my opportunity to develop experience for it, right? And in that case, I should embrace this situation I am in, way out of my comfort zone, because I know it's not enjoyable, it's not comfortable, but hey, this situation is going to teach me so much. It's going to give me all of this valuable experience I'm going to need, right, to be resilient. So it's really going to give me another set of roots with a whole different color, a color that I didn't have, right? Lastly, very importantly, a resilient person has some sort of support system, right? In the form of family, friends, well-wishers, right? And along with the support system, they have their own unique way of coming up with a support ritual or a practice. They do something that helps them gain back their shape after life has squished them, right? So they might do something. It might be painting, it might be going on a walk, it might be baking, whatever suits you. But that support system, it brings you back on your feet after you've taken a fall, or after you've helped somebody and really experienced compassion fatigue. This support ritual you do, the support practice, it helps energize you back. Okay, let's make a quick recap, because we've spoken about a few things in the past in these two sessions, right? There's different kinds of compassion. Then there's the compassion fatigue that you can counter using resilience, and then resilience helps you correct your mistakes, helps forecast mistakes. So if you ask me, this is a lot of things going on here, and just thinking about having to work on all of these is pretty intimidating for me, right? But the good news is there's actually it's important to know about these things, right? So that you know when somebody needs compassion, so that you know what the meaning of resilience is, so you can bring yourself back up. But coming back to my point, you don't necessarily have to keep thinking about these things all the time as you go about your daily lives. There's actually a much simpler way to work on all of these at once. And that's something I know all of you have done because you're on this call with us right now. And that one thing is meditation. So it's proven, and I've experienced this. I am experiencing this firsthand after so many years of meditation, is that meditation directly helps me with all types of compassion. It helps me stay compassionate towards myself, towards everybody else. Whenever I feel the fatigue, it gives me the strength to be compassionate towards my own fatigue. It also helps me be resilient, so that whatever life throws at me, I'm able to catch. Even if I'm not able to catch, even if I lose my footing, that's fine. Because of meditation, I'm able to stand back up, right? Again, I didn't put everything else in this little tree diagram, but we spoke about the support practice, right? Meditation, I think, is one of the best support practices there can be, because really you don't need anything. All you need is time and the ability to, you don't even have to sit, right? If you're even just laying down, you can try to just focus. And if you focus the right way, you can meditate, right? And sticking to resilience, right? Thinking about how the stress ball has its own shape, right? And because it's so flexible, it can endure whatever stress we throw at it, but it has a somewhat defined idea of how it should look when there's no stress. Similarly, meditation and ideation, when we ideate, when we think about infinite love, or when we do acknowledge that, hey, all of us have differences, but that one thing that's common between all of us is either infinite love, or I could term it as universal cosmic consciousness, right? So I choose to ideate on that, and that is my idea, right, of who I am. If there were no difficulties, or even when they are, I know this is who I am. I am somebody who's able to calm down and tune in to the feeling of infinite love, or to the awareness that we're all one and supreme consciousness is within and without all of us. That's a great baseline. So whenever I'm feeling really happy, yeah, I can tune into that feeling. Whenever I'm feeling low, all right, that one fact, that one thing that never changes about my existence is this awareness, is this feeling, right? And my practice of tuning into it. I think that's a really big step towards being resilient. So next time, just like the stress ball, whenever life squishes me, that's fine. Meditation has given me the flexibility to, let life squish me in whatever way it wants me to. Yet it's going to give me the strength to come back to my own posture, not the literal meditation posture, but like to my own stature, when life again allows me to. So next week, we'll spend just a bit more time talking about really how meditation helps us be compassionate and be resilient, and we'll link that with emotional intelligence, because that is really what these 3 talks are about. So thank you for hearing me out. Please visit us and tune into the other videos we have. And I'd like to know from you, do you know anybody who's compassionate and resilient? Maybe it's yourself. Let us know. Let Radha and I know.
Thank you for that, Apurva. Before we start jumping to that part, I just want to address some comments from Ruben. I think you addressed his second question, but his first question is, what if shyness prevents us from being compassionate? How can we overcome the fear of showing weakness to the others? I would say that there's a difference between shyness and also fear of intimacy and showing yourself, because you can be shy and still have compassion, because that's an internal process. But when you're having to outwardly express that to somebody else, in terms of connection, there are a lot of things that can get in the way of that. I mean, one is socialization of, like just messages and culture of don't cry, don't show weakness, don't be vulnerable. I mean, there's like, that's something. And then also there's a lot of wounding when it comes to connection. And then that can happen in childhood with having an insecure attachment bond to your parents. I mean, it's so complicated. It's really complicated. But I just wanted to address that. And then your second point was asking about compassion and if it's hard to build, and is it something that we have inside of us? And Apurva had mentioned that meditation helps build that compassion. And I think that it is true that some people are born, I don't think it's true, I know that it's true that some people are born with more empathy and high sensitivity. 20% of the population is highly sensitive. I don't know if they have a percentage for empathy, but those are genetic traits. So they are inherent in some people to higher degrees. And as we talked about today, it's something that anybody can build. Anybody can cultivate that sense of compassion. And the more that you meditate, the more that you will start to feel that. I'm reading your other comments.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll just put them up. Okay, here we go. Also, I would add, as a personal experience, that's something that helps with resilience is the ability to understand how we are not alone in fighting with changes, and there are just ups and downs. Absolutely. And life is just something we have to deal with. That's true. I think that the past full year really demonstrates that with the pandemic I think the 11th was when the World Health Organization officially said that COVID-19 was a pandemic. So today's the 7th, just a couple days, we are on the full 1 year anniversary. And yeah, it's something that we are all dealing with. I don't think anybody asked for this. And we are learning to be resilient and how resilient we can be. And, like this unthinkable thing of what we have to be sheltering in place at home, and look at what we've been doing. We are doing it. And if you are alive and you're tuning into this, you are resilient because you are still here. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you're welcome, Ruben. He said thanks in the comments. So you're welcome.
Thank you for your comments, Ruben. I think they're really relevant. I'm sure a lot of us have had similar thoughts, questions about this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, I know we're pretty much at time, so I'll just kind of say this and then wrap up about, when we had spoken about this 2 weeks ago, I said that for me, it feels like empathy and high sensitivity are two gifts that I would return, because that was a space that I was in. I was just really not enjoying those qualities of myself. And then today I really heard you about what would the world look like if more people had more compassion and more empathy. And I think it's a good question. I think it's a part of why we have Vistara Circle and these meditation practices, is we are very committed to helping the world be a better place. And by being here tonight and by meditating and building compassion in yourself, it's not just for you, it's for anybody else that you're coming into contact with, which has a ripple effect. It makes a difference. So just wanted to emphasize that, and say that not only the meditation is a support system to help with resilience, but also the community that we have here and that we are building. Like, there's something very special about having a community to meditate with who can talk about these sorts of things.